Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will discuss shock. Shock is a state in which diminished cardiac output or reduced effective circulating blood volume impairs tissue perfusion and leads to cellular hypoxia. Diminished cardiac output, of course this will result in reduced effective circulating blood volume, or maybe reduced effective circulating blood volume due to any cause. So this will result in reduced supply of oxygen to the tissue, cellular hypoxia. This is the main thing in shock. Now these are different types of shock we will be discussing today, inshallah. Cardiogenic shock, hypovolemic shock, shock associated with systemic inflammation, neurogenic shock, anaphylactic shock, septic shock. So, depending upon the mechanisms, we can divide this shock into different types. Cardiogenic shock, the main mechanism is failure of myocardial pump resulting from intrinsic myocardial damage. This can occur in myocardial infarction, ventricular rupture or arrhythmias, or extrinsic compression. Failure of myocardial pump can occur due to extrinsic compression like in cardiac tamponade, or this can occur due to obstruction to outflow like in pulmonary embolism. If thrombosis dislodged, this can settle at the bifurcation of the pulmonary artery. You have seen that picture, you remember that? So this can block the circulation. Of course, this pulmonary embolism will result in obstruction to the outflow. Now, hypovolemic shock. The main thing in hypovolemic shock, this is inadequate blood or plasma volume. So, this we can see in these conditions, maybe due to hemorrhage, severe vomiting, severe diarrhea, maybe severe burns or severe trauma. So in all these conditions, there may be reduction in the blood volume or plasma volume, and this can lead to hypovolemic shock. Shock associated with systemic inflammation. There may be different conditions, severe infections, burns, trauma, pancreatitis. The common thing in all these conditions, that is massive outpouring of inflammatory mediators from the innate and adaptive immune cells. These inflammatory mediators, these will produce arterial vasodilation, this will also produce vascular leakage. The spaces between endothelial cells may be increased, so this will result in vascular leakage and venous blood pooling. Due to arterial vasodilation, there will be venous. Due to vasodilation, there may be venous blood pooling. So this may be due to different types of infection, different reasons. The clinical picture is similar. This is known as systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Now this is the table in your book. Different types of shock and their major mechanisms. You can see this. We have discussed the same. Other causes may be loss of vascular tone. So, loss of vascular tone, this type we can see in some anesthetic accident or spinal cord injury. The mechanism is peripheral blood pooling. This can result in hypotension and shock. Anaphylactic shock, the basic mechanism, that is increased permeability by IgE mediated hypersensitivity reaction. Different type of allergy. IgE is produced, there is a hypersensitivity reaction to this, and this results in systemic vasodilation. So this can result in hypotension and tissue hypoperfusion and shock. Now septic shock, this is the most serious problem. We will be discussing this in bit more detail. With the mortality rate exceeding 20%, septic shock ranks first among the causes of death in intensive care units. And this accounts for more than 200,000 lost lives each year in the United States. Even in countries like USA, more than 200,000 lives are lost due to this septic shock. Its incidence is rising. Why this is rising? Maybe due to improvement in life support for critically ill patients, as well as the growing ranks of immunocompromised hosts. More and more patients, they are coming with immunosuppression. We can see these patients due to chemotherapy, due to immunosuppression, advanced age, or some HIV infection, different conditions, immune system may be compromised, and we can see this serious infection which will result in septic shock. Septic shock is most frequently triggered by gram-positive infections, then gram-negative infection, gram-negative bacteria, or maybe fungi. Different types of infecting organisms may be there. Now, pathogenesis of septic shock, we can discuss this in different topics. Factors believed to play major roles in the pathophysiology of septic shock include the following: inflammatory and counter-inflammatory responses. In sepsis, various microbial cell wall constituents they engage receptors on the cells of the innate immune system, triggering pro-inflammatory responses. Likely initiators of inflammation in sepsis are signaling pathways that lie downstream of toll-like receptors. Upon activation, innate immune cells, they will produce different cytokines like TNF, interferon gamma, then maybe different types of leukotrienes like IL-1, IL-12, interleukin 1, interleukin 12, interleukin 18, as well as some other inflammatory mediators. Markers of acute inflammation like C-reactive protein and procalcitonin, these are also elevated. Then reactive oxygen species ROS, prostaglandin and lipid activating factor, these are also elevated. These effector molecules induce endothelial cells to upregulate adhesion molecule expression and further stimulate cytokine and chemokine production. The complement cascade is also activated by microbial components both directly and through the proteolytic activity of plasmine. This will result in the production of anaphylotoxins, like C3A, C5A, chemotactic fragments like C5A, and opsonin like C3B. Endothelial activation and injury. The pro-inflammatory states and endothelial cell activation associated with sepsis, this leads to widespread vascular leakage and tissue edema. When there is vascular leakage, the space between endothelial cells is increased, so there is vascular leakage. This will result in edema formation and which have deleterious effects on both nutrient delivery and waste removal. So due to this edema formation, there will be less blood supply, reduced blood supply, so nutrients are not supplied properly and waste are not removed properly. One effect of inflammatory cytokines is to loosen the endothelial cell tight junctions, making vessels leaky and resulting in the accumulation of protein-rich edema throughout the body. Then there will be induction of a procoagulant state. Sepsis alters the expression of many factors so as to favor coagulation. For example, pro-inflammatory cytokines increase tissue factor production by monocytes and possibly also by the endothelial cells. And this also results in decrease in the production of endothelial anticoagulant factors and less production of protein C. So all this will result in a procoagulant or prothrombotic state. The vascular leak and tissue edema decreases blood flow at the level of small vessels. This will result in production of stasis. This will result in diminishing the washout of activatory coagulation factors. All these factors will result in systemic activation of thrombin and the deposition of fibrin-rich thrombi in the small vessels, often throughout the body, further compromising tissue perfusion. This is DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation. In full-blown DIC, the consumption of coagulation factors and platelets, this may be so great that deficiencies of these factors will appear, and this will lead to a bleeding tendency and hemorrhage. So this was a procoagulant or prothrombotic state. By the consumption of coagulation factors and platelets, there may be a tendency for bleeding. Then there may be some metabolic abnormalities. Septic patients exhibit insulin resistance and hyperglycemia. So both will act together. Insulin resist whatever is available, tissues are not so much responsive to that insulin. So there is insulin resistance, there is hyperglycemia. Cytokines such as chemoneutrosis factor and interleukin 1, stress-induced hormones like glucagon, growth hormone, glucocorticoids and catecholamine all will drive gluconeogenesis. At the same time, the pro-inflammatory cytokines suppress the insulin release while simultaneously promoting insulin resistance in the liver and other tissues. Hyperglycemia will also decrease the neutrophil function, thereby producing a functional deficit of the glucocorticoid. So, hyperglycemia will also reduce the neutrophil function. This will suppress the activity of the neutrophils. The bactericidal activity of the neutrophils will be suppressed. So, all these metabolic derangements, other factors, so these can result in organ dysfunction. Systemic hypotension, interstitial edema, small vessel thrombosis, all these will decrease the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the tissue, which fail to properly utilize those nutrients that are delivered due to cellular hypoxia. High levels of cytokines and secondary mediators diminish myocardial contractility and cardiac output and increase vascular permeability and endothelial injury. This will lead to acute respiratory distress syndrome. Ultimately, these factors may conspire to cause the failure of multiple organs, particularly the kidneys, liver, lungs and heart, and this can result in death. So, mechanisms are acting in these patients. So by this diagram you can understand, this is from your book Robbins, you can understand this is same what we have discussed, how different mechanisms may be acting together independently to produce multi-organ failure and death of the patient. Microbial products, these can act on the neutrophils and monocytes. These will be activated. These will produce some cytokines like tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 1, high molecular these proteins. These can activate the endothelial cells. These microbial products, these can also activate the complement. This will produce C3A, C5A directly. Maybe this can activate factor 12, which will result in a procoagulant state. So endothelial cells, when these are activated, these can release some other cytokine like interleukin 6, 8, nitrous oxide, platelet activating factor, reactive oxygen species. So what will be the effect of all these cytokines? There may be vasodilation, increased permeability, decreased perfusion. This can result in multi-organ failure. Similarly, there may be some systemic effects of these cytokines like fever, diminished myocardial contractility, metabolic abnormalities, and these can result to multi-organ failure. These cytokines, interleukin 10, apoptosis, tumor necrosis factor, these can result in secondary anti-inflammatory mediators. This can result in immunosuppression. Similarly, you can see on the left side, factor 12 activated, there will be a procoagulant state, tissue factor is released more, tissue factor plasminogen inhibitor, the production is reduced, thrombopodolant, there is produced protein C, all these three are reduced. So together all these factors will result in a procoagulant state. This can result in disseminated intravascular coagulation, and this DIC can lead to tissue ischemia, and this can result in adrenal insufficiency. This can result in multi-organ failure. So different mechanisms may be operating in a septic patient to result in shock and multi-organ failure and maybe death of these patients. Shock is a progressive disorder that, if uncorrected, this will lead to death. The exact mechanisms of death from sepsis are still unclear. So, for hypovolemic and cardiogenic shock, however, the pathways to death are reasonably well understood. So in these settings, shock evolves in mainly three general phases. The non-progressive phase, then progressive phase, then irreversible phase. These are known as the stages of shock. Non-progressive stage, in this stage, the reflex compensatory mechanisms are activated. And perfusion of the vital organs is maintained. In this early non-progressive phase, A variety of neurohumoral mechanisms help to maintain the cardiac output and blood pressure. These include baroreceptor reflexes, catecholamine release, activation of the renin-angiotensin axis, then ADH release. So all these will result in generalized sympathetic stimulation. The net effect is tachycardia, peripheral vasoconstriction. So this will result in pallor and coolness of the skin. This is known as typical face of the patient. Pallor and cool and clammy skin. But in septic shock, this can initially cause vasodilation and the patient may present with warm and flushed skin. Coronary and cerebral vessels are less sensitive to the sympathetic response, and due to this reason, these will maintain relatively normal caliber. Their blood flow and oxygen delivery may be less effective. Now, next stage, progressive stage. If the underlying causes are not corrected, shock passes imperceptibly to the progressive phase, during which there is widespread tissue hypoxia. In the setting of persistent oxygen deficit, low supply of oxygen, low supply of blood, hypoxia, this will result in oxygen deficit. Then there is this tissue of hypoxia will lead to anaerobic glycolysis. This will result in poor lactate production, lactate acidosis. This will result in lowering of the pH, acidic pH. This will blunt the vasomotor response. The arterioles will dilate and there may be a pooling of blood. This peripheral pooling not only worsens the cardiac output, but this also puts endothelial cells at risk for developing anoxic injury with subsequent DIC. When the endothelium will get anoxic injury, they will release procoagulant, we have discussed this, and there may be disseminated intravascular coagulation. Then there may be irreversible stage. In severe cases, the process eventually enters an irreversible stage. Widespread cell injury. This will result in lysosomal enzyme leakage. This will further aggravate the shock state. If the ischemic bowel, GIT, this is necrose, this will allow the intestinal flora to enter the circulation. This can result in bacteremic septic shock. At this point, the patient may develop anuria as a result of acute tubular necrosis and renal failure. Now, at this stage, maybe despite heroic measures, The downward clinical spiral almost inevitably culminates in death. There is multi-organ failure and there is death of the patient. Other causes may be loss of vascular tone. So, loss of vascular tone, this type we can see in some anesthetic accident or spinal cord injury. The mechanism is peripheral blood pooling. This can result in hypotension and shock.